Welcome to the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and I interview business leaders who are committed to their own growth and the development of everyone on their team. If you enjoy my podcast, be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Welcome to another episode of the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. You know, we spend a lot of time on this podcast speaking with people who are leaders inside the what we might think of as traditional business world, but leadership really can be seen in all kinds of places. And today we're going to focus on the world of sports, specifically the Major League Baseball. And I've been looking forward to this conversation with today's guest after I heard him on an interview with my dear friend and colleague, Epec Williamson, on the Ultimate Coach podcast, because what he spoke about just touched my heart because of who he is, but also what he was talking about related to growing others and helping them see and live into their greatness. And of course, the whole purpose of my podcast is around growing leaders, growing ourselves, growing others. So it gives me just absolute pleasure today to welcome as my guest, Ken Crenshaw. Ken, welcome to my show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I am really looking forward to our conversation. And let me just give a very brief intro because I'm really eager to jump into the topics we want to talk about today. Ken is the Director of Sports Medicine and Performance for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's currently in his 21st season with that organization, where he brings a wealth of experience and innovation to the field of athlete care and performance. He's worked with 4 Major League Baseball teams over the past 35 years, maybe a few more years than that, including a World Series championship with the Atlanta Braves. Now, Ken, you started with what we might say humble beginnings, certainly not in the baseball field. Tell us a little bit about your background before we get into your own experience with a coach who's impacted your life greatly.
Yeah, well, thanks for the intro there. And, even makes me reflect back on, the 37 years of baseball that I've been a part of now, and just looking at the journey that I was on the whole time has just been incredible. I came from a really small town in New Mexico, a place called Carrizosa, New Mexico. It was about 800 people there. And I actually lived outside of town to a degree. So out on a cattle ranch is kind of where I grew up in New Mexico. And it was just such a surreal place where, you learned a lot of things that I think many people would never get a chance to experience. So a very small town, small community, and we just learned a lot of different values that I've carried forward that have helped me with leadership and communication and things that I've been really blessed to learn from some other greats as well. But it's was a really impactful place for me, and then certainly my family and all of the people that I've met along this journey have been incredible. But yeah, my roots I'll never forget, because they gave me a lot of the powerful things that I'm able to give to others now, because it's kind of my kind of goal in life is to love and serve people, and how I do that is based upon all of my experience and the things that I learned, particularly when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. Well, please share with us this coach that you had in high school who has continued to impact you, I imagine, even today.
Yeah, yeah. I would call him the true essence of what we call the butterfly effect. His name was Ron Becker, and he was a super special person. He grew up in New Mexico. He ended up playing basketball at the University of New Mexico. Went on to be a coach and an educator. And he somehow stumbled into our tiny little town. And And I was about, let's see, I was probably 15. I was a freshman in high school when he showed up as our basketball coach. And we only had a few sports where I grew up, football, basketball, and track. So yeah, we had 96 kids in high school, 23 in my graduating class. So it was very small, and everybody kind of had to play sports for us to have the teams, or particularly a football team. But anyway, yeah, he showed up at a really critical time of my life. My mom and dad, who are incredible people and have given me so many gifts, um, didn't see eye to eye at the moment, and they went their separate ways. And I was kind of in need of guidance, I guess. My mom was such a wonderful servant herself, and she gave me so many things. And but there was a moment when I really needed the guidance that I got from Coach Becker. And I still remember it like it was yesterday because it's one of those moments that changes your whole life. And he came into our town, and when he did, he really made a huge impact on not just me, but like I can name hundreds of kids that he's influenced. And then via some of his teachings through me, I've been able to affect so many lives, luckily through the influence that he had on me. And I always got to take a deep breath when I'm talking about him. I was 15 years old, and I was a really good athlete for our size town. I had a really famous dad too. He played for the Philadelphia Eagles, so a very good athlete. Grew up in the same town, and so there was always this kind of misnomer of, "Wow, you can be like your dad." So there was always a little bit of pressure in there to be a good athlete. But Coach Becker, I still remember the day I was a freshman, and he didn't put me on the varsity team, which in the moment I really felt like, wow, he's sliding me here because I know I'm as good as most of the guys on the team. And anyway, he didn't put me on the team, and he just kind of let me go that day. And then the next day during practice, he pulled me over, and I always say to this day, I can only imagine what I looked like. I'm sure my body language wasn't good, and my attitude certainly wasn't good. And he said, "Hey, do you know why you're not on the varsity team this week for the tournament?" And I can only imagine. I was like, "Yeah, whatever, coach." Like, no, no idea. Tell me. Um, and he said in the moment, he said, "Look, you have more talent than anyone on the floor, and until you really learn to give it all you have every day, you're never going to be as good as you should be." And he said, "So that's part of the reason why you're not on the team." And he said, "The second thing is that the way you showed up in practice today was exactly like I thought you would. You showed up and you went half speed and you moped around." And he goes, "That's just another reason you'll never achieve your full potential or your full greatness." And he just walked off. He just left me there. And I was in this really like defeated place. Um, Not defeated, but like, you know, sad, kind of pissed, mad place. And in my mind, I was telling myself, I'm going to prove this guy wrong. And so I think, like many people have experienced, coaches or parents or mentors probably have challenged them and had that same feeling. But what he did from there was he actually started to serve me. Every day he would come after practice and kind of give me the thumbs up or thumbs down on whether I gave it everything I had in his eyes. And Matt was so powerful because I was pissed at him and I was going to prove him wrong, but he did the opposite of what most people would do. Is he just kept serving me. He's like, "Yeah, that's what it's going to take for you to be better than you ever thought you could be," because that was always his goal. And man, it was so powerful. And fast forward 4 years, we went through so many trials together. He ended up getting cancer my senior year in high school, and we had never done some of the things that we ended up doing my senior year in high school, which was go to the state tournament, make it down to the final eight teams. And he was in this devastated spot where he was fighting for his life. And we were the team just came together and bonded, and we were playing for him. And And so there was so many lessons learned and so many things that he gave me from that 15-year-old age till my 18-year-old age about how to achieve your full potential. And fast forward from there, I went on and I had an incredible year, my senior year. And I still remember him at the very last game we played. He came up to me and my mom and dad were there. And he said, today is what I call competitive greatness, which was one of John Wooden's. I don't know if everybody on your podcast listens or knows who John Wooden is, but he's a legendary basketball coach. It was way before his time. But he had this pyramid of success, and on the very top of it was called competitive greatness, and it's defined as being your best when your very best is called for. And I still, to this day, I teach that concept quite a bit because Coach Becker always taught um, John Wooden's pyramid. And on the bottom of the pyramid, there's these different things that are going to lead you to this competitive greatness. And he said after the game, he said, that's what I would call competitive greatness, is what you did today. You played your very best when your very best was called for. And unfortunately, it was a little short to win the game, but it was just a profound moment in my life that said, wow, like this guy served me, he believed in me, he challenged me. He did all of these things that I consider now great leadership that led me to really see my own greatness. And he showed me the greatness that I couldn't even see in myself. And so that moment was so transitional in my life. And then I went on to college and I started coming back to help him after about 4 years of college. I started working in professional baseball and I had my winters were kind of free. And I started coaching with him then, and then it took me to a whole nother place of mindset and specific thoughts around how you achieve or how you help people achieve their own greatness. And those moments were just so powerful. And so I just started kind of learning the lessons then. I think when I played for him, I tried to do what he wanted me to do. And when I coached with him, I learned about why he did what he did. And that again changed my life even more. And it's allowed me to change so many lives going forward.
It's not often that you get to come back and work with somebody that was your coach and the ability to see behind the curtain, so to speak,
Right.
why he did what he did is so powerful. I remember you talking about he said something to you that you didn't understand at first about changing
Mhm.
just two people. And and why did he say that instead of
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah, so it was my first day of coaching with him. We were together, and he said, "Hey, Ken, do you know what our job is?" And I'm kind of like the young coach that doesn't know much of anything, and I'm like, "No, what is it?" And he goes, "Our job is to change two of these kids' lives." And so I wasn't a real big question asker. Um, I was probably more of a, hey, I got the directive, ready to go. How are we going to do that? In my mind. Um, and it wasn't till later that I actually discovered that, what my own purpose was probably found in that first 15-year-old interaction. And then secondly, in my first day of coaching with him, because my purpose is I am that I help others achieve more than they believe they could through my words, my actions, and my serving of them. And so had to reflect on that moment. But when he said we just need to change two of them's lives, it became the equivalent to me of like, if we're going to climb to the top of Mount Everest, we don't just look at the top of the peak and hope that we're going to get there. We put one foot in front of the other, in front of the other, in front of the other. So it's one step at a time. It's kind of this process oriented system. So when he said, hey, we just need to change two of them's lives, I was almost like, well, why not all of them's lives? But what I realized later is when you change one or two of them, the rest of them start to change because of that. So it made the task way simpler than saying, hey, we've got to change all 12 kids on the team's lives. And it was such a powerful thing that really has stuck with me to this day, because when he coached, he really had simple fundamental things that he would go over and over and over again. And then those fundamental things became collectively a really powerful experience to grow kids, not only in their minds, but the game and life and everything else. But that one step at a time mentality, it was so powerful when I look back now. And that's kind of my thing on teaching people. I teach a course called the Ultimate Team Building Experience. And what I really want people to get is that for you to impact others' lives, it's got to be one layer, one brick at a time, almost like John Wooden's pyramid. And it's simple, but it's really hard. So one of my distinctions that I always teach is simple hard. People are like, well, what is that? And I'm like, most things in life are really simple, but we as humans make them really hard. We convolute them and we twist them into all these things that are really hard, but they're really simple. So simple hard is something that I talk about quite a bit. But that was the first really eye-opening thought that I reflected on later on about we just need to change two of these kids' lives. And I think what I love to talk to people about too is we are really good at learning from our experience, but it's not until we reflect on our experience that we really learn. And that's what I did in that moment. I reflected on why he said that, and then it just changed the whole spectrum of the way I was looking at things and the way I could help others.
So powerful. And Ken, I think it would be really interesting then to jump from that to the different teams that you have worked with. And you've been
Mhm.
with the D-backs for now 21 years.
Yeah.
How do you bring that philosophy of two at a time or even one at a time when you are building rapport with a team or a new team member or the management group? How do you apply that today?
Yeah. No, what a great question, Meredith. Tremendous question. Well, I think it all starts with, you know, selection. Like who are they? Are the people that are coming on board with us selecting us first, and are we selecting them? It's such a powerful distinction that we have is when I interview anyone, um, I'll say, hey, this relationship for us to be great, like we're out to be, we both need to have the same level of commitment and the same desire to be on the team together. So if the questions we're asking you or the commitments that we're explaining to you are too big, then this is probably not the right place for you because we're committed to greatness. And so that's the starting step. But I think what really has helped me, and I think it's one of the fundamentals of leadership, is to really ask the other person, where is it that you want to go? Like, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What are your um, your purpose in life, which is a big question to ask because most people don't even know. And once I figure out where they want to go, I always tell them, I'm not your boss. I'm your tour guide. I'm here to help you get to where you want to go. And that becomes really powerful because I think most leaders don't talk in that space. They're like, hey, I'm the leader. This is what we need to do to get the results that we need to get. And what I've found is that when I find the right people, or our team finds the right people, I don't find them personally, we all do it together, then there's this collective essence of us all knowing what we're good and bad at, and then knowing what we're committed to. And then there's this love and serving piece that goes in between of how do I love and serve that employee or that teammate to get to where they want to go. Because I'm kind of on the end of my quote baseball career, if you will, and I've achieved some amazing things that I would have never achieved had it not been for the Coach Beckers and all of the other people that have served me along the way in my learning and challenging and all that. So now my goal or part of my purpose in life is to love and serve others to help them get some of the same things that I've got, which, the game has provided an incredible life for my family and for me and has allowed me to change a lot of lives. So I want to get that for them. And it's always my duty to help them get there is kind of the essence of the way I think about what leadership really is. And the one other thing, Meredith, that I'll say that I that I think Coach Becker saw the greatness in me that I couldn't see in myself. And what I'm really pretty good at, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm really good at seeing the greatness in people that they can't see in themselves. And I love trying to let them see that. And once they take off the limitations that they have, because it's all in their thinking, then they can go to these incredible places. So I love doing that when I see the potential in somebody and how I can unleash them to be powerful and see the possibility that's available to them versus the limitation that they generally think in.
Mhm. I want to go deeper with that because I'm thinking of my listeners who really are committed to growing themselves as leaders. And I believe many of them are always seeking how to grow
Hmm.
others. And it really is, it's a skill, it's a superpower. This idea of being able to see someone else's potential that they don't see for themselves for all kinds of reasons. Like you said, it's rooted in their thinking.
Yeah,
But thinking is hard to change. That's a
it
habit that
is.
we have, these constant limiting beliefs and other, habits that we've acquired over time. I would love for you to share what kind of approach do you take with someone when you notice, oh my gosh, here's this whole area they don't even see in
Yeah,
themselves, but it's so crystal clear to me. How do you
right.
help them lift the veil so that they discover that too?
Oh, you're giving me chill bumps just even thinking about it because this is what I love to do. Um, you know, part of the coursework that I teach is, well, first, you can't lead anyone until you lead yourself. And you really have to grow yourself. And I think that's where a lot of leaders, because there's people that I've led that are above me, and I would call it leading from the middle, that when I see how they limit themselves is that, the top leaders are generally evaluating everybody below them, but then they don't get evaluated themselves. And I've like always put myself out there with my team is like, hey, I want my own evaluation, which we do internally. They evaluate me. It's anonymous, it's powerful, and I need to know the things I'm good at and the things that I'm maybe not so good at. And how can I best serve the team is really the question that I love to give to them and give them full permission to be honest and open with you because I think that is one of the most powerful things that any leader could do that I know that we've done internally. And when you start getting 30, I've probably got 34 people on my direct team, and they tell me what I'm good and maybe not so good at or where I can improve. And when you see it 7 times, there's no like dodging it, like, oh, that's not true. And like, it's really true then. And what I think that is, Meredith, is the most powerful gift you can get. It's called awareness, you know, because most people and leaders walk around that they don't have awareness of themselves. And most of them don't even have awareness of something that they're even working in. But if you don't have awareness of yourself, there's no way that you're going to be able to help somebody else because then it becomes a very selfish view of leadership. Well, like, hey, I got all the answers and I'm going to tell this person how to do it. And I just have operated totally different. So I think creating awareness is the first step to you actually leading anyone else, if that makes sense. That kind of drives, okay, how can I teach that person where they're limiting themselves? But if you're not really comfortable with yourself and you can see that you have your own, I would call it ego, or, this little guy over here talking to you all the time that most of the time is lying to you because I always see ego as a protective device. It's this other person that's protecting you, trying to keep you in the tribe or in the team or in the club, and it's actually lying to you most of the time. So you start believing, wow, I need to look good here. I need to be right here. Um, or I don't want to look bad here. I don't want to let the team down, or all of these ongoing thoughts. And I think we know by science now we have about 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are kind of repetitive. And I would challenge that most of them aren't even true. But we start believing the ego or the little guy over here. And then that creates these limitations in our thinking. And it's a protective device. But what I've learned is quite the opposite. When you can just really be aware of where you're coming from, what your point of view is, we call it our point of view. You're going to have some things in your past that create um, a story that again, the little guy over here tells you all the time that's not even true, but it's probably helped you get to some really cool places because it drives you too, or most people it does. And then it becomes limiting in certain degrees. So if you can understand that, wow, most of my limitations are just in my thoughts. And a thought you can always change. You have a choice in your thoughts. That's the beauty that I've learned. It's like, well, wait, this happened to me or something went bad is a thought that I have. The other thought I could choose to is, wow, I get an opportunity to grow here or learn. So we always have a choice in our thoughts. And I think that's the first step that I try to take with the people that I'm trying to help see the greatness in themselves, is really open up their thinking and challenge any of their thoughts or their beliefs. I think we all create these beliefs that aren't even true. So I love working in that space, and it generally will let somebody stop for a minute and go, whoa, hold on, you're right. A question I was asked once is, hey, name something that you believed in last year that you don't believe in now. And I'm like, I had to really think hard about that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I thought about this last year, and now I actually don't even think that. So I always say, well, if you did that with that, what makes you think 1 year from now you're not going to change the belief that you have right now? So it just frees up space, clears off the hard drive to actually put on some really positive and creation based thoughts.
Hmm. That's so important. And those 2 points that you made, for a leader to effectively help someone challenge their thoughts, they need to be aware. They need to be
Hmm.
self-aware about their own thoughts, but also really being aware of what's coming out of that other person's mouth. So they pay attention to noticing, what are they saying? And do they really believe what they're saying? Right?
Yeah.
Challenging them to listen to yourself. I think going back to what you were saying about the ego getting in the way, when we're concerned about how we look, how we sound, it kind of limits our ability to tune in at a deep level to the other person.
Hmm.
And so I think that the foundation of awareness is so key for a leader to be able to do what you do now. So I'll say
Yeah.
effortlessly, but skillfully, because you've practiced it for so long. And
Right.
that's really the key, right? I mean, practice is what's required in order to get really good at
Yeah.
what it is that you do so easily now.
Yeah, it's taken me 57 years and I'm still learning in an evolving process, but it really does. When I try to teach people this, I'm like, you have to practice it and be able to catch yourself in the moment in a moment of maybe interaction or communication that's not going the way you thought it would, or you have a beautiful book that you wrote that I just read that really goes down that same avenue, and it's like, how can you take a step back, take a deep breath, be unattached to whatever, and I don't want to come off the wrong way, whatever that person is saying, be unattached to it for a minute and just really hear them and listen to them and see where they're coming from. Then I always call it, if we're going to create a really cool masterpiece on the whiteboard, the first thing we got to do is erase all of the other writing off so we can create our own thing together. So I love to say, let's just clear the blackboard off, or the whiteboard off, and let's have an open space that we can actually create from. And so that's where that listening to really hear the other person is so powerful. And I know you've, I think Denny, maybe is that you wrote your book with? Yeah. You guys
Yes.
did a fantastic job of explaining that, of how it can be powerful for you. So that is huge. And I think one other thing that popped in my mind when you just mentioned what you did was vulnerability. I think people are so afraid to look bad that it keeps them from getting to greatness quicker. And I think that the most elite people I've worked with, for the most part, they're okay with just saying, "Hey, give me the truth right away. The sooner you give me the truth, the quicker I can get to greatness." And what most people do is they're afraid to look like they don't know, so therefore it takes longer for them to get to greatness. And what I've found is vulnerability, just being like, "Hey, I don't know, give it to me," or "How can I get better?" If they would walk into that vulnerable space, which is scary for most people, then they're going to get some incredible information, and then they're going to get to where they want to go quicker, because people see you way different than you see yourself, and they're probably better eyes for you than you are for yourself. And so I think, again, that's awareness, but being vulnerable actually gives you more power. It gives you more freedom, and but it takes courage to be vulnerable. And most people aren't courageous enough to just say, "Hey, I'm going to let my hair down and I don't know anything. Go ahead and give it to me. How do I learn?" But man, I've learned through the years, and I've taught enough people now. When you can get to that place, you'll get to greatness way quicker than trying to act like you know, or trying not to look bad.
Ken, as you're talking about that the beliefs that we have about I can't afford to look bad, I can't
Hmm.
afford to be appearing imperfect in some way, even though
Hmm.
everybody knows we're not perfect. But that wanting to keep up a certain appearance takes a lot of energy. And
Yeah.
that I think can be challenging for a leader to break through.
Hmm.
Because if somebody is putting up this front, like, I'm okay, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
me, and yet you can obviously see, and others can see, no, you're not really okay. There's these
Yeah.
areas. What do you do when somebody is in, I won't say denial, but in a position where they don't feel like they can afford to let down
Yeah.
their guard, and because of past hurts or trauma or injury or whatever
Hmm.
they've experienced in the past, that has caused them to be more protective of that exterior.
Yeah. Well, it's God, what a loaded question, and a beautiful one that I think, if what I try to do is get everyone to understand that I work with, is that we have a point of view, or an ego, or there's a lot of way, a character. There's all these different ways I've heard it explained. Um, that in the essence of it, we're not good enough. I'm not enough. I call it not enoughness. I'm
Mhm.
living in this space of not enoughness. So this not enoughness will drive people. Like, I know mine is, I'm not important enough and the world is untrustworthy. It's kind of a two-pronged thing the way I teach it. So in my I'm not important enough, well, I'll overcome that by just learning and learning and learning. And I'll almost make myself not important in front of people that are kind of quote higher on the ladder, or on the tribe, than me. I don't even know, or I didn't know until I had some really good um, self-help around it all to show me, "Oh no, you do that all the time." And part of it is really powerful, and it will help you. It When I see somebody that's ultra driven, I automatically go to their not enoughness bone has been triggered so that they overcome I'm not enough by working harder or being more resistant, to be honest. It's and so part of that's great. It's giving you knowledge, it's giving you drive, it's giving you all this stuff. And then it's great until it's not, because there's a point where it's at some point where it doesn't serve you well. Like,
Mhm.
an example is I'm not important enough to actually have a conversation with my boss who's a little younger than me, but he's a very well educated, smart guy, driven, hungry. But there was a point in my own life I'm like, wow, I don't really want to have a conversation with him because I know I can help him with some stuff that he can't even see. And once I understood that, I was like, okay, I'm having this conversation with him. And it changed his life. It changed our organization. It changed a lot of things. And I was like, wow, that my own important or my own not enoughness of not being important enough kept me away from actually serving him and the whole organization and a lot of people. And so when I can help somebody see that we all have it, anyone that says they don't have it is lying to themselves, first off, and secondly, to all of us. And when I can show them that you have a point of view of or a not enoughness that's in there somewhere that's creating limitations, and when you can actually see that they're just thoughts and limitations, then we can actually shift out of that and go, look, let's operate in another space. And I know one of my dear friends, Chris Smith, and he always talks about this limitations and possibility, and how we create one and the other one's basically just a story. So if I can help them see that their own point of view is great for them and then it's limiting for them, then I think I can get people to really see the world a different way and see themselves and see their own possibility a different way.
Mhm. So good. So let's go back to this the boss that you helped because you
Yeah.
got past your own limiting thoughts. This was
Hmm.
around creating a culture, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
that's so relevant to what my purpose with my podcast is helping leaders grow others so they not only thrive, but just really step into their greatness. And that
Right.
creates an amazing culture. So, talk about your own culture creation experience there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been to four different professional baseball teams, and I can't tell you how many leaders or owners or overseers of my particular position that I've been through. And, they all have different styles and they all have different commitments and they all have different things that they think are important. And what I've seen, though, through all of my years of doing this is generally when somebody's new to the job, they really want to stamp their ideas around, hey, these are the things we stand for, kind of the values and the commitments of what they want to get achieved. And so they come in and they're really like kind of adamant about telling everybody about it. And, the first year seems to be pretty good because everybody's reminded of it. And then about year two, it starts to kind of slide because we kind of assumed, well, we told everybody last year, so it must be just carrying on. And it doesn't. Like creating a culture is the living, breathing essence of what you do every day. And I think you have to be reminded of what we're all committed to, which is a shared purpose. What are shared values? Do we all agree or somewhat agree that the values that we're going after um, are the same? And then two other pillars that I teach are shared ownership and shared leadership. So I'm not the leader of my group. The group leads itself. But when we really started honing all of this in, um, with the Diamondbacks, one of the things that I reflected back on was my years in Tampa. When I first started, we were an expansion team. So nobody was there. I was the first guy on the ground floor in my particular area. And so they're like, hey, you can hire everybody that's in your area. So it was just me. And I was, going through resumes and calls and whatnot. And I was trying to hire the right people. And I wanted to make sure we had a great team. And I had my own thoughts and values. And But what I forgot to include is, hey, do they actually buy into the things that I buy into? And I just didn't think about that. So about half the people I hired were really good. And there was about a quarter that weren't good at all. And there was another quarter that were kind of so-so. And so about 2 years forward, I hired another friend of mine that I worked with in college, and he just had all the same values and work ethics and all the same things we had. And then we started doing it together. Like we had to hire more people. So when we started collaborating, it was so powerful because I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have looked at that person that way. And he would say, well, I saw this or heard this, and I'd be like, wow, I didn't hear that. And so it's kind of, in essence, led to where we are now, or at least the sports medicine performance team with the Diamondbacks, is if you came to work with us, you're going to have 10 people separately interview you. And we're all going to have our own take or point of view on what you value and what your skill set is and all that. And it was in the moment that started happening and we started getting really good people, a lot of them, and then we'd put them in our system and we had a development and system and a feedback system that I thought was working good. But what I learned in that moment was there's more power in the team than there is in you. There's a saying about wolves, the strength of the pack is the wolf, but the strength of the wolf is the pack. So that moment is when it clicked to me. Wow, like I made some okay decisions, but man, when there was two and now 10 of us, we're just not going to miss that much. So what most leaders are afraid to is to hand out that power or that influence. And then what happens is when the team selects you, guess what? They're not going to let you drown if you're not very good. They're going to support and love and care for you until you prove that you don't belong here, and then the team will let you go. But I never have to do. I don't go, hey, this is your eval and you didn't do very good. It's so powerful that there's more power in the team than there is in you. It's one of my distinctions that I teach all the time. And if you as a leader can't hear that, then you're probably not a very good leader, is one of the ways I look at it. But when you can get that moment and really hear that your team, because what it does is it empowers the team. I call it shared leadership and shared ownership. Now, Meredith is coming on our team. We're all responsible for Meredith succeeding and supporting and making our team better. And if I hired Meredith and the rest of the team doesn't like Meredith, guess what? They're going to let Meredith drown. They don't care because, oh, the boss hired him, not me. And that will change your whole company, your team, all of that. That's one of the really powerful lessons that I've learned along my path.
Yeah, that shared ownership, as you say, and the way to get buy-in is involving others
Right.
in decisions, including the hiring decisions. That's so brilliant. Ken, there's so much more we could talk about. We are running close to our time here. Is there something else I haven't asked you about around leadership that is near and dear to your heart that you would like to share with my listeners?
Yeah, my purpose, as I said, is really simple. I am that I help others achieve more than they believe they could through my words, my actions, and my serving in them. And what I've done over the years is I've really simplified down that if I just love and serve, and that's how I show up. Even today, I want to love and serve you and your community. And I've never even met your community. I've met you before, but that's who I'm being, is how I show up, or who I'm being far outweighs anything that I'll do or say. And so, if you really come from how do I love and serve my people or my family, you're on multiple teams if you think about it. How do I just love and serve them? That just changes the whole world because I think we don't show up as humans most of the time. We're operating out of fear instead of out of love. And I really just say once we shift to love, I equate it in the sports world as though you're playing to lose, or you're playing to win, or you're playing because you love the game. And if you can just play in that love space, it just changes everything for you and it changes everything for your people. And then you get to hand out all of these gifts, which I always say, I call myself Santa Claus 365. I get to hand out gifts to people all year round, and the real gift is what I get back. And it's not anything monetary, it's just to see people grow. So I think love and service wins in every case.
Mm. I would love, as we close, for you to clarify for you, what does love look like in action? I think people can visualize
Mhm.
serving others, and you gave examples
Yeah.
earlier, but what does it look like in a workplace where you're working with mostly guys, as you
Mhm.
are at the Diamondbacks? What does love look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we instinctively as humans, if we go back to some of our point of view, we've already got this predetermined listening of how that person is. If we've met them before, we certainly go, oh boy, there comes so and so who loves to talk too much or whatever preconceived listening that we've heard that person in. Or there's somebody new and we don't really know them, but as humans, we love to judge. And I don't, judgment for me is a two-way street. Part of it's like, well, part of my job is to actually evaluate, which is a form of judgment. But I think we have two options in that judgment, positive or negative. So love to me is just loving our team so much that I'm willing to not have any attachment to a new person or an old person's or a listening that I have about an old person. It's just like, how do I serve or love that person to help our old team move forward? And I think that's what most people feel in a family situation. And it's something too, I see a lot of leaders. I said, do you love your people like you love your own kids or your own family? And most of them don't. And it's like, well, I do. I feel like I've got like, or at least on my direct team, 34 kids. And I'm older than all of them, so I can actually look at it that way. But I think that's what love looks like is setting down all of your judgments and just really creating a space for them to show you what they have, and then you love them along that path to get to where they want to go.
It's a wonderful definition. And one of the things I want to emphasize is you're not talking about going easy on them. That's
Mm.
not what love really means. I love the
Yeah.
fact that it's,
Mhm.
setting aside judgment, which we're so quick to do. Whether
Right.
that's another whole aspect of awareness that we can talk about, right? I'm
Yeah.
aware of all my judgments about myself and other people,
Right.
but
Well,
setting those aside long enough to really see, it circles
yeah.
back to what we talked about at the beginning, to see their real potential, even though they
Right.
may not,
hmm
and
And
help
and that
draw it out.
love, Meredith, love, sometimes people think it's really fluffy type stuff, but I'm like, I love you so much that I'm probably going to tell you something you don't want to hear. That's love too. And people call it tough love. Um, and one thing I would always say is I love thinking about language and how that lands. I wouldn't call it tough love. I would call it crucial love because it's like, oh, I'm going to have this tough conversation with one of my staff members or it's not a tough, if you keep saying it's tough, of course it's going to be tough. But if you say this is crucial to the success of our team, it's a totally different space. So I say it's crucial love, not tough love.
I like that phrase. I'll start keeping that one in mind, because I think what goes back to also is that ownership. I am owning the fact that it's crucial for me as the leader to
Mhm.
have this conversation. I can't hand that off to someone else. And
Right.
for the benefit of our whole team, it's crucial for our
Yeah.
success. So being able to kind of zoom out and look at the impact somebody's behavior or words or whatever are having that are not acceptable or
Mhm.
are not working, to be able to speak from a place of love, not judgment. I just love
Yeah.
that. Oh, Ken, this has been so great. I want you to know how much I admire you and the work that you have done, the lives you've impacted over these 37 years. And, giving credit to your coach, And also to you for having that awareness to see what he was doing and absorb it and make those changes in yourself. And now taking all of that wisdom and applying it with all these people whose lives you're interacting with on a regular basis. Thank you for who you're being
Yeah,
in the world
thank
and who
you.
you were with me today. It was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. I want to acknowledge you too for, just the space you're stepping into, which is leadership and communication, and all of the work that you've done. I've been investigating you quite a bit lately, ever since we talked, and I read your book not too long ago, and it's just so powerful to see people that really care about others, and I think that's why we connect so well. So I just want to acknowledge you too for what you're doing and doing the podcast and having me on.
Thank you. Well, Ken, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know my listeners will find so much value, and I would encourage them to listen to this more than once because there are a lot of nuggets that you've, dropped along the way that they can extract and apply in their own roles as leaders and as human beings. So
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
again for being with me.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into my podcast. Now head over to growstrongleaders.com and check out the powerful tools we've created to help leaders strengthen their character and communication skills. Until next time, I'm Meredith Bell.